So this is one of the images I shared in the group. And we've got this shot, which is the ambient. And then I've got this flash shot that lights this first room and the second flash shot that lights the back room. And the first thing I do once I import everything into Lightroom, I have adjustments that I do before I merge. So I ended up, and my goal with this is to get the ambient as close to a perfect image as I can get before I start merging or blending with the flash shots. So I dropped the highlights on it, boosted the shadows just a little bit, popped the whites a little bit to give everything else kind of a nice brightness, dropped the blacks for a little contrast, dropped the exposure just a little bit. The initial ambient was slightly too bright. And I'll actually give you kind of a before and after. So this was before. It was a little too bright for what I wanted and a little too yellow in some of the parts. So I don't want that, I just want that. There we go. We've got this here. And let me see what else I did. Saturation, I desaturate a little orange and a little yellow just to bring about a natural wood look. And then these lights were casting a pretty yellow cast on everything. And added some sharpening to it, add a little noise reduction, and then added the lens profile correction right here. So I let it auto select with all of that. So that's what I normally do. I kind of have most of this as a preset for my very first step once I import the raw. And then I'll make slight adjustments as necessary before blending. On the flash, I have the same preset. And then I'll adjust it. The initial flash shot again was a little too bright. I want this left and right. So this was the initial flash shot. Again, it was a little too orange, a little too bright, blew out some stuff over here. And I didn't need all of that. So I adjusted it, dropped the exposure, dropped highlights, did all of that, desaturated some orange and yellow on it. Just a little bit there. And then the same for this image. The initial was too bright and it was actually too cold. And I'm trying to figure out like some rooms are like, I kept the settings on the flash the same, but this room ended up looking a little cooler. So I just warmed it up and dropped the exposure a little bit. And then I took all of that into Photoshop. And let me show you. I'll put this back in normal. And this is, ignore these first two layers, but this is how it comes in. I'll put that back in normal. And it imports all of these. I right click, I select all the ones, I right click and say edit as layers in Photoshop. So it comes into Photoshop and I arrange the layers. And with the flash shots, we've got that one, we've got this one, and then we've got the ambient. So I take one of the flash shots, put it in lighten mode. And so it just blends the lightest parts of both the flash shots. And that right there already looks darn good. And then I overlay the ambient, but I change the ambient to luminosity. And now I get the flash color with the luminosity. But for this, if it was just regular real estate, I'd say we're almost done. But for the designer work, I talked to the owner and she was super proud of the lights that she put in. And they had a nice warm yellow glow to it. So there was nothing I wanted to paint out of the luminosity here. I really like all the natural light. And this up here, people thought that was a flash from the, like whatever, but there's a big window on the right. So that's all window light coming in. But I did need to add back some warmth to the lights here and some natural color to the wood. Because if you look down at the bottom right here, you can see it's slightly discolored from the flash. And I needed to add a little warmth from that light back there. So I duplicated the ambient layer, changed it back to normal mode. And the ambient layer has all that natural warmth to it. The wood color I find almost all the time is way more natural in the ambient than the flash. So most of the time I duplicate the ambient layer and paint in ambient wood in normal mode. But what I did, I put the black layer mask on, and then I just painted in the warmth on the light here, the warmth on some light back there, that warmth, the wood color. So you can see before, after, before, after, and it fixed all of the wood color problems here, added the warmth there and there, added that color back to the bench, and then the color layer, trying to see where I applied it at. Oh, the inside of this archway. You can see it was getting that orange from the flash shadows. And if I used regular ambient, it would have been too warm as well. So oftentimes when I have some of those flash shadows that are super orange, or any other color issues that the flash or the ambient is not going to make look just right, I'll create a layer, hitting the layer button, and then change that layer to color mode. And then I'll eyedropper, like if I'm trying to fix, what I did here is the inside of the arch was too warm, and I wanted that to match the rest of this wall color to give it a nice clean look. And I do this again with mostly just designer work. So I eyedroppered the color on the wall here, and then I just paint in the color there, and it leaves all the shadow texture, it leaves all the detail texture, and all it does is change the color. So now the inside of the arch matches everything else. So that is the final image. And I'll go over one more here. Let's do this one. This is one of the other ones I shared. So again, looking at the before and after, this was the original on the left. It was a little too warm, highlights were too bright. And so basically I took out a little warmth, took the highlights down, balanced everything so it's a little more like this could be a final, not perfect. And this is the first flash shot here. On the left is the original. It was too bright again. So I just dropped the exposure a little bit and warmed it up a little bit on the right. And then the flash here, I wanted some nice window detail. So I liked the plants that I was catching outside the window. So I did a flash on the right side of the room to light everything over here. And then I did another flash on the left side to light everything over here. So I have nice window detail there. And then I selected all of those in the ambient and took it into Photoshop. And here's the final. So again, I'll get rid of those layers, disable that layer mask, put this back in normal, put that back in normal. Okay, so for this one, I actually left the flash shots in normal mode because I wasn't looking to like light over here necessarily where it would have just worked if I'd put it in lighten mode. I just specifically wanted the reflections out of the window. So I took this flash and added that mask and painted in what I wanted over here so we have nice window detail out everything. Then I added the ambient layer on top and painted out a little bit on the window. Again, my style isn't so much, the focus wasn't the whole window view. I just like some of the texture out there to help give some location. But I didn't want it to be distracting, so I left it hazy, and I do that intentionally on most of what I do. So this is pretty darn good. Let me turn that to luminosity mode, and that way it gets all the color from the flash. which is better, but it's still not perfect. If you look at the back of the chairs, they've got the flash hot spots are kind of grayed out on it. The whole right side over there is a little black and white because I didn't flash in that room. There's an orange shadow behind the tree there that I need to fix. So I duplicated the ambient layer and used that in normal mode to fix the back of the chairs, and the whole right side I blended in just the ambient layer to get the wood color back in there. Added some ambient in the little top left for that light, warmed that up a little bit. Now I still have the flash shadows and behind the tree and stuff to deal with, and the ceiling is a little uneven as far as color temp. It's cooler in the middle and warm on both sides. But you can see adding in, I did paint the wood in as well. And then I used the color layer at the end to, again, I selected color from the wall and neutralized that orange shadow behind the tree. And I really didn't do much with the ceiling. I kind of like it where it is. But I used the ambient layer to neutralize that warm color. And there's the final there.